The rain tapped insistently against the glass, a rhythmic percussion that echoed the tension in Emma's chest. Her umbrella had turned inside out, battered by the wind, and her heels clicked unevenly against the marble floor as she hurried through the lobby. Her mind was a tangle of half-formed sentences, deadlines, and a tiny, sleeping bundle at home. Her baby son, Noah, whose soft breathing haunted her dreams even when he was awake. One misstep, one wrong glance, and everything could unravel. Emma's eyes caught the gleam of the polished brass handles on the office doors, and she took a deep breath, summoning the courage to step inside. Today mattered more than any day before. She had rehearsed her apology 100 times in the cab, turning each phrase over in her mind like a fragile coin. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Coffee. The universe had decided that coffee would betray her. Her hand trembled as she balanced the steaming cup, the rich, dark liquid threatening to spill. Her foot caught the edge of the mat. Time slowed in that split second, the cup tipped, and warm coffee arched through the air like a fleeting comet, before colliding with the crisp white shirt of Lucas Bennett, her boss. Lucas froze, eyes wide, the words, "Not again," hovering silently between them. Emma's stomach sank, each second stretching like an eternity. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, dabbing at his shirt with the crumpled napkin clutched in her hand, her voice shaking. Lucas pulled away sharply, the scent of expensive cologne mixing with the bitterness of spilled coffee. His gaze, usually calm and commanding, burned with quiet fury. "I can't believe this," he said, his voice low but cutting, a precise blade of disappointment. "Emma, this is the 3rd time this month. I'm done." Emma's heart fell, not just for the job she loved, but for the fragile thread that held her life together. Termination was not just a word, it was a sentence. A single mother with rent due, a baby to feed, bills piling like threatening clouds. She had no safety net. Before we begin this story, tell us, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Now let's begin. The office fell into a stunned silence. The click of her heels faded down the corridor as she retreated, humiliated. No one said a word, yet the air itself seemed to mourn with her. Outside, the rain had become a drizzle, but the chill had settled into her bones. She pressed her palms to the glass, staring at the world blurred by raindrops, wondering how one simple accident could feel like the end of everything. Yet, even in her despair, something lingered. A memory of his eyes, briefly soft beneath the storm of irritation. She shook her head, trying to push it away. There was no room for hesitation, for wondering what might have been. Not anymore. The day stretched ahead in a dull haze of rejection letters, tepid tea, and the constant tug of worry for Noah. Emma's small apartment smelled faintly of baby powder and laundry detergent, a reminder of her precarious balance. She set Noah in his crib and pressed her cheek against the soft mattress, listening to his breath. "I'll figure this out, little one," she whispered, more to steady herself than to comfort him. Yet, even as she promised herself resilience, the weight of fear pressed against her chest. Bills sat like accusing shadows on the counter. The grocery list felt like a summons to a court she couldn't afford to face. And then, there was the bracelet, the one she had inherited from her grandmother, delicate and silver, a token of love and endurance. She traced it with trembling fingers, the memory of her grandmother's words whispering in her mind. "No matter the storms, Emma, you'll find your way." That night, she made a decision. The bracelet would go. The sale would cover groceries and medicine, even if it cost her something she had held dear for a lifetime. It was a sacrifice, but one made with the fierce determination of a mother who had no choice but to protect her child. Meanwhile, Lucas returned to his apartment high above the city, the spilled coffee still staining the crisp white of his shirt in his memory. His life was meticulously controlled, meetings, deals, appearances. But for some reason, Emma's trembling hands and flushed face haunted him more than any financial report or boardroom confrontation ever could. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the skyline, the city lights reflecting in his eyes like fractured stars. He hated that he couldn't shake her from his mind. Lucas had built walls around himself, shields of ambition and perfection, but that morning's incident had cracked a corner. He didn't know why it lingered, why the sight of Emma's panicked gaze, the warm fall of her hair against her damp coat, kept replaying in his mind. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was something more. Emma, meanwhile, slept fitfully that night, her dreams haunted by a blurred vision of Lucas, stern, commanding, yet somehow achingly human. Her hand twitched, as if reaching for something she couldn't have, and she woke to the cold apartment, the bracelet now gone from her wrist. replaced by an emptiness she couldn't yet name. In that quiet, cinematic pause between heartbeats, a subtle thread was spun, a connection neither of them understood, yet neither could deny. Fate, as capricious as rain, had begun its work, weaving lives together through spilled coffee, silent sacrifices, and the fragile glimmer of something like destiny. And somewhere, beyond the rain-streaked windows and the faint hum of city lights, a story began. A story of love, of heartbreak, and of the delicate, trembling hope that one day, perhaps, hearts broken by circumstance could learn to beat together again. Emma didn't know it yet, and Lucas would not admit it. But the world had shifted that day. One small accident, one trembling moment, had set the stage for a collision of lives, a slow, burning connection that neither time nor pride could entirely erase. And so the first chapter of their lives, entwined in sacrifice, longing, and quiet courage, opened, like the soft rustle of a letter slipping from a drawer, or the gentle patter of rain that promises both storms and renewal. The first morning after the coffee spill, Emma awoke with a hollow ache in her chest. The apartment was silent except for the soft cooing of Noah, her tiny beacon of hope and exhaustion. She stared at the peeling paint of the ceiling, tracing cracks with her eyes as if they could offer some guidance, some answer to the question she whispered under her breath. How did it come to this? Her life, once precarious but orderly, had tumbled into uncertainty overnight. Bills sat like quiet accusations on the counter, each envelope a reminder that motherhood demanded more than love. It demanded survival. She had no cushion, no safety net, no wealthy benefactor waiting in the wings, just her Noah and the tiny apartment that smelled faintly of laundry, detergent, and dreams deferred. Emma moved through the morning like a ghost, preparing bottles, washing dishes, folding laundry, all while her mind spun strategies. She couldn't afford to cry. She couldn't afford to falter. Each decision carried weight. Each misstep threatened to topple the delicate balance she had fought so hard to maintain. Her best friend Mara arrived like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Mara's presence was warmth and noise, a rare comfort in a world that often felt cold and unyielding. "You look like you've been punched in the gut," Mara said, plopping onto the threadbare couch with a sigh. She reached over and ruffled Noah's hair, eliciting a delighted giggle. "Spill coffee, get fired, watch the universe laugh at you." Classic Emma. Emma forced a laugh, bitter but necessary. "It wasn't funny," she whispered, tracing the edge of a teacup with a trembling finger. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet." Mara's eyes softened. "You'll figure it out. You always do. Remember your grandmother's words. Storms pass, but strong roots endure. You've got roots, Emma. You're stronger than you think." The reassurance was fleeting, a fragile bubble that popped when she reached for the bracelet tucked away in the jewelry box. A delicate silver heirloom, the last tangible memory of her mother. She traced its shape with her fingers, heart tightening. This bracelet had been a part of her for years, a symbol of love, endurance, and family history. But as she glanced at Noah's small blanket and the half-empty fridge, she made a decision. By noon, she had walked to a small pawn shop, the bell above the door jangling like a warning. She laid the bracelet on the counter, her hands trembling. "I need to sell this," she said, voice small and hesitant. I need it for things." The shopkeeper, a kind-eyed woman named Ruth, nodded. "Life makes us do things we never imagined, dear. Don't feel bad. You're doing what you must." Emma felt a strange mix of grief and relief. She left the shop with cash in her pocket and a heart that felt both lighter and heavier at once. Her sacrifice had bought necessities for her child, but it had cost her a piece of herself. Back at home, she settled Noah in his high chair, feeding him with quiet diligence. The bracelet's absence was a dull ache against her wrist, a missing rhythm she hadn't realized was so vital. She wondered, fleetingly, if Lucas Bennett had any idea the weight of what she had lost that morning. Not just the job, not just the pride, but the fragments of a life she clung to with desperate hope. Meanwhile, Lucas sat in his sleek apartment above the city, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The spilled coffee still haunted him. Not the mess, not the inconvenience, but the flush of her cheeks, the rapid flutter of her hands, the way she had seemed to shrink and expand all at once under his gaze. He tried to push it away, to focus on spreadsheets and stock reports, but her image lingered, like smoke in a room that refused to clear. For the first time in years, he wondered about the person beyond the office persona. Beyond the mistakes, the spills, the failures. What drove her? What fears kept her awake at night? He could not explain why her resilience, her fragile courage, gnawed at something deep in him, but it did. And he hated himself for it. Emma, meanwhile, navigated the week in a blur. She applied to temporary positions, delivered resumes by hand, and spent evenings singing softly to Noah as he drifted to sleep. Every day was a careful choreography of survival, every smile a practiced mask to hide exhaustion. Yet through it all she clung to small sparks of hope, a warm loaf of bread, a friend's text, the memory of her grandmother's words echoing like a mantra in her mind. On Thursday, she found herself walking past a small charity shop, the bracelet still heavy in memory. Something pulled her toward the window, a mixture of curiosity and an unexplainable premonition. And then she froze. Inside, on the display stand, glimmering under soft light, was the silver bracelet. Her breath caught. She had sold it just days before, and yet there it sat, waiting, catching light in a way that felt almost deliberate. And standing behind the counter was someone she would never forget, Lucas. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. He looked at her, eyes widening with recognition and something else. Something she could not name at first. There was no anger, no reprimand this time. Just a raw, quiet acknowledgement of everything unspoken between them. "Emma," he said softly, stepping closer, though his voice carried across the small room like an echo of their shared past. "I didn't expect." Her chest tightened. Words, excuses, apologies, they all dissolved into the charged silence. She noticed the faint line of wear on his suit, the way his hand hovered near the bracelet as if it held some secret she could not yet understand. She began, but stopped. Pride, self-preservation, fear, all warred inside her. She could not afford vulnerability, not now, not ever. Lucas didn't push. He merely nodded, eyes softening with a mixture of guilt and something warmer, deeper. The connection hung between them, fragile and electric, like the thin thread of a storm lightning poised to strike. Emma left shortly after, her steps brisk, her mind a storm. The bracelet, now sold and resold, had returned to touch her life in a way she did not expect. And Lucas had reappeared in her world, unbidden, unavoidable, stirring emotions she thought she had carefully locked away. That evening, she cradled Noah, rocking him gently, staring out at the rain-streaked streets. Her mind replayed the encounter, each glance and gesture like a whispered secret. She knew, in a quiet, reluctant way, that this was only the beginning, that the thread Lucas represented was delicate, yes, but it was also real. Somewhere, in the spaces between fear and longing, between sacrifice and necessity, a story was beginning. And Emma, wary but unbroken, understood that life had a way of weaving together loss and hope, heartbreak and opportunity, in ways no one could anticipate. As the city lights shimmered against the wet streets, Emma whispered to the night, to herself, and perhaps to fate, "We'll see where this goes. Somehow, we'll see." The city had a rhythm of its own, one that Emma had long ceased to notice. Streets hummed with impatient traffic, neon signs flickered like distant stars, and the hum of life pressed against her chest like a constant reminder. The world moved on, whether she was ready or not. She clutched her bag tighter, Noah asleep in his stroller, and navigated the crowded sidewalks with the precision of someone who had learned to survive in chaos. It had been weeks since the coffee spill. Weeks since she had been fired. Weeks since her life had rearranged itself into a delicate balancing act of exhaustion, baby bottles, and fleeting moments of hope. Selling the bracelet had been a sacrifice that weighed heavily on her heart, but the memory of her grandmother's words lingered, guiding her. Strong roots endure. That afternoon, the rain returned, gentle at first, then insistent. Urging her to take shelter beneath the awning of a small charity shop, she passed countless times without a second thought. Emma ducked inside, grateful for the momentary reprieve. The scent of polished wood and old paper filled her senses, grounding her, calming the storm inside. She was kneeling to adjust Noah's blanket when a voice stopped her in mid-motion. The single word caught her off guard. She froze, her heart thudding with a mixture of surprise, apprehension, and something unnameable, something that made the air between them electric. She looked up slowly, and there he was, Lucas Bennett. Handsome, sharp, and impossibly composed, yet there was something different in his eyes. Something softer, more human than she had seen in the office. "Lucas," she breathed, the sound a mixture of disbelief and caution. She straightened, carefully shielding Noah behind her. "I didn't expect to see you here." He held up a hand, a small, almost apologetic gesture. "I could say the same about you." His eyes flicked briefly to the bracelet on the display counter, glinting under the shop's soft light. "I didn't realize it would be here." Emma's chest tightened. The bracelet, her sacrifice, her memory, her grandmother's gift, was now in his hands. Not literally, but in the quiet way he looked at it, in the subtle acknowledgement of its weight. She forced a smile, wary and guarded. I sold it, she said simply, her voice careful. I needed to. Lucas nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding passing through his gaze. I see. There was a pause, pregnant with unsaid words, the kind that linger in the space between two people who know more than they speak. I didn't know. Emma's throat tightened, and she looked away, focusing on Noah's small hand curled around hers. It's not at your concern, but it was. She felt it even as she said the words. The world had shifted subtly the moment they crossed paths again. The tension between them was a living thing, a silent hum beneath the noise of the shop, the distant patter of rain against the windows. Lucas took a careful step closer, but not too close. A gentlemanly caution, or perhaps fear of overstepping. Emma, he said, quieter this time, I can't stop thinking about what happened. About you and everything. Emma's heart skipped. His words, gentle and deliberate, carried an intimacy she wasn't ready for but couldn't deny. She clenched her hands around Noah's stroller, grounding herself, trying to maintain control. I've been surviving, she said carefully, doing what I have to for Noah. That's all. And you've been incredible, he said softly. His gaze met hers with a tenderness that surprised her, that unsettled her. I underestimated that, you. He stopped, as if realizing his words were too raw, too revealing. Emma swallowed, heart pounding. You don't need to say anything more, she whispered. Yet inside, a part of her longed for him to continue, to acknowledge the unspoken bond forming between them. The silence stretched, but it was not empty. It was full of possibilities, of glances that lingered too long, of breaths held in anticipation. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the roof, a rhythm that matched the rapid beat of her heart. I wish things were different. Lucas finally said, voice low, carrying a weight that pulled at Emma's chest. I shouldn't have been so harsh that morning. Emma looked at him then, truly looked, noticing the lines of tension in his face, the subtle fatigue beneath his polished exterior. You were doing your job, she said quietly, though the truth was more complicated. I was careless. He shook his head, a rueful smile tugging at the corner of his lips. It wasn't just that. I let my frustration blind me, and his gaze softened, flicking briefly to Noah. I didn't realize how much I didn't see. Emma felt a flicker of something. Understanding, regret, desire, and she looked down at her son, reminding herself of the fragile balance she had to maintain. Vulnerability was dangerous, and Lucas was too close to the edge of her carefully guarded heart. I have to go, she said softly, adjusting Noah in the stroller. He needs a nap. Lucas nodded, though his eyes followed her every move, unwilling to let the moment end. Of course, I hope we'll talk again, he said, the words hanging in the air like a promise, fragile and tentative. Emma hesitated, then nodded once, tight and controlled. Maybe. Outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, the streets shimmering with reflections of neon and lamplight. Emma pushed the stroller down the sidewalk, each step heavy with emotion, each glance over her shoulder toward the shop leaving her heart slightly unsteady. Inside, Lucas remained behind the counter for a moment, his hand brushing the display where the bracelet rested. He traced its shape with his finger, imagining the woman who had sacrificed it for her child, imagining the resilience, the courage, the tenderness she carried quietly beneath exhaustion and fear. He didn't know yet how deeply he would come to care. He didn't know how intertwined their lives would become. But in that small, fleeting encounter, something shifted. A thread had been pulled, a connection made subtle but unbreakable. Emma, meanwhile, walked the remaining blocks home in silence, Noah sleeping peacefully in the stroller. Her mind replayed every glance, every word, every inflection. She felt the pull of something she couldn't name, a quiet promise wrapped in hesitation, and the weight of unspoken emotion. By the time she reached her apartment, the city had begun to settle into evening. Lights flickered on in neighboring windows, casting soft patterns against the walls, and Emma felt the fragile spark of hope. Perhaps, in the midst of struggle and sacrifice, there was room for something else. And somewhere unseen but palpable, Lucas felt the same, the pull of a life yet unwritten, a story that had only just begun. The bracelet, the rain, the coffee spill. They were threads in a tapestry neither of them could yet see, but both would come to follow, step by tentative step, heart by heart. In that quiet, cinematic moment, the world seemed suspended, neither past nor future fully present, just the delicate, trembling now. And in the spaces between breaths, between raindrops and reflections, a story began to weave itself, slowly, deliberately, like a heartbeat finding rhythm. Emma didn't know it yet, but she had crossed paths with Lucas again for a reason, and Lucas, for all his control and composure, couldn't deny the pull that drew him toward her. Toward the woman who had spilled coffee, who had sacrificed everything, and who had awakened something in him he hadn't felt in years. The story, quiet yet insistent, was beginning to write itself, one encounter, one glance, one heartbeat at a time. The rain had returned with a persistent drizzle, painting the city in silver reflections and quiet melancholy. Emma had finished her errands, Noah snug in his stroller, his small fingers curled around her coat. She moved briskly along the slick pavement, but the drizzle soon soaked through her umbrella, turning the world into a blur of streetlights and reflections. And then she saw him. Lucas stood beneath the awning of a closed cafe, coat collar turned up, gaze lost somewhere between the wet streets and the glimmering skyline. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the city around them ceased to exist. Time slowed, the drizzle falling like a curtain around them. Soft and insistent. "Emma," he said softly, stepping toward her hesitant, as though afraid to disturb the fragile tension that clung between them. "Lucas," she replied, keeping her voice calm. Though her chest tightened, she could feel Noah shift in the stroller, sensing her unease. "It's just the rain," she added, though neither of them believed it. Lucas's gaze softened. "I didn't expect to see you out here like this." Emma shrugged, adjusting Noah's blanket. "Life keeps moving," she said, voice even, though a tremor betrayed her. "Even when we don't know where it's taking us." They fell into an uneasy silence, the only sound the rhythmic patter of rain on the pavement and the distant hum of the city. It was a pause filled with unspoken words, a fragile bridge between the lives they had carefully kept apart. Finally, Lucas spoke again. "I've been thinking about you." Emma froze. The words, soft and deliberate, struck her like a gust of wind. "You what?" she asked, careful, protective. Her hand rested lightly on Noah's stroller, grounding herself against the pull she felt toward him. "I've been thinking about everything," Lucas said, his eyes dark with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "About that morning, about the way I treated you, about you." Emma looked down, feeling a heat rise to her cheeks. She wanted to retreat, to hide behind the armor she had built for herself. But something in the rain, something in the quiet intimacy of the moment, kept her rooted. "You don't need to explain," she said softly, though her voice carried a weight of longing she could not suppress. "It's water under the bridge." Lucas shook his head, a rueful smile tugging at his lips. "No, it's not. I've been unfair, and I've realized He stopped, struggling with the vulnerability that had never been his strength. "I underestimated you." Emma's heart ached at the quiet sincerity in his voice. He wasn't just apologizing for spilled coffee or professional protocol. He was recognizing her struggle, her resilience. The sacrifices she had made quietly, without complaint. The rain intensified, and Lucas moved slightly closer under the awning, though still careful to respect the boundaries she held. "I want to understand," he said, voice low, intimate, almost a whisper against the patter of water. "I want to know what you've been carrying. I want to be here, if you'll let me." Emma's hands tightened around the stroller, her knuckles white. I can't," she said, the words sharp and brittle. She hated that they were true, that the tiny flame of desire she felt for him flickered dangerously close to a roar she could not control. Not now. Not like this." Lucas nodded, a shadow of regret passing over his face. "I understand," he said, but his eyes lingered, searching, questioning, pulling her toward him with a gravity she hadn't anticipated. I don't want to lose you. Not like this. Not without knowing." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility, each drop of rain a tiny punctuation in the unspoken narrative building between them. Emma glanced at Noah, asleep in his stroller, and felt the weight of responsibility press against her chest. She couldn't afford mistakes. She couldn't afford distractions. But she could feel the pull of Lucas, undeniable and steady, tugging at a part of her heart she thought long buried. "I have to go," she said finally, though her voice wavered. "Hay needs to eat, to sleep. There's life waiting." Lucas exhaled softly, but didn't move away. "I'll wait," he said simply, a quiet vow. "When you're ready, I'll be here." Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to reach out and touch the thread that connected them. But pride, fear, and the weight of her world held her back. She offered a brief nod, a silent acknowledgement, and began pushing the stroller down the slick pavement, each step deliberate, measured, a careful retreat from the temptation of something she could not yet allow herself. Lucas watched her disappear into the drizzle, a strange ache settling in his chest. He knew, with an unshakable certainty, that he was not walking away, not from her, not from the life she represented, fragile and fiercely beautiful. The rain fell around him, a quiet reminder that storms, like emotions, were temporary, but their aftermath could shape everything. Emma, meanwhile, walked home through the wet streets, heart pounding, mind racing. Every glance over her shoulder, every fleeting memory of his eyes, made her pulse quicken. She had promised herself resilience, had promised Noah security, but Lucas was a force she hadn't anticipated, an intrusion into the carefully ordered world she had built around survival and sacrifice. By the time she reached her apartment, soaked and weary, Emma realized the rain had washed something from her spirit. Not despair, not fear, but the faintest glimmer of hope. Hope that perhaps, in a world that seemed determined to challenge her at every turn, there could be something else. Something tender, something human, something worth the risk. That evening, as Noah slept nestled against her chest, Emma traced the contours of the bracelet's absence on her wrist. The silver that had once adorned her skin now rested in unknown hands, perhaps in the awareness of Lucas, perhaps already reshaping the invisible thread binding them together. And somewhere above the city, Lucas walked beneath the same rain, coat soaked, hair plastered to his forehead, and felt the same pull, the undeniable, magnetic tug of a life yet unwritten, a story yet to be lived. In the quiet between raindrops, in the spaces between words spoken and unsaid, a connection deepened. A slow burn of understanding, of longing, of tentative trust. A story was unfolding, not loud, not abrupt, but steady like the soft rhythm of rain against glass, and neither of them, not yet, could imagine the journey ahead, the heartbreak, the sacrifice, the moments of beauty and despair, the love that would demand everything and yet give more than they ever thought possible. But for now, the rain was enough. The quiet understanding was enough. The pull between them, delicate and insistent, was enough. And somewhere, suspended in the silvered city streets, a story began. The city slept fitfully that night, the rain's gentle percussion fading into the distant hum of streetlights and traffic. Emma sat by the window, Noah nestled against her chest, his soft breathing a steady rhythm that both comforted and restrained her. She traced the line of her wrist where the bracelet had once rested, silver now replaced by absence, a tangible reminder of sacrifice. She had spent the day running errands, dodging long lines, juggling bills, and trying to patch together a semblance of order. Yet amid the chaos, one thought refused to leave her mind: Lucas. His eyes, soft yet insistent, haunted her in moments of quiet. He was no longer just the man who had fired her. He had become a presence, a shadow threading its way through her fragile days. Emma's life had always been a careful balance of duty and survival. Raising Noah alone had left her with little time for herself, no space for indulgence, no room for mistakes. The father had vanished before the baby's first cry, leaving her to navigate the tumultuous waters of motherhood with stubborn resolve. Every small decision, the way she spent her last pennies, the hours she carved from sleep to work, was a testament to endurance. Yet Lucas, for all his corporate polish, had seen something of her humanity in the brief encounter at the charity shop. She could feel it. The way he noticed the exhaustion in her posture, the fleeting tremble in her hands. And though she tried to resist, she recognized the pull of something deeper, something that went beyond apologies or obligation. Meanwhile, Lucas was confronting his own walls. In the office, the polished boardroom meetings and endless spreadsheets felt hollow without Emma's presence, without the sharp reminder of her courage and warmth. He had spent nights replaying their encounter in the shop, questioning every word, every glance, every hesitation. For the first time, he wondered if the meticulous control he wielded so effortlessly had blinded him to what truly mattered. Lucas's past was not without its burdens. Family expectations weighed heavily upon him, decisions that were never entirely his own, responsibilities he bore with quiet resignation. His polished exterior was a shield against the world, but it had left little space for vulnerability, little room for mistakes, and no tolerance for chaos. And yet Emma had pierced that armor in ways he did not fully understand. The next afternoon, fate intervened again. Emma, navigating the aisles of a small grocery store, collided with a basket of fallen apples. Hands trembling, she knelt to gather them, muttering apologies to the stranger whose coat had been brushed by rolling fruit. She did not notice Lucas until his voice cut through the gentle din of the store. "You've got a talent for making life complicated," he said lightly, though the tension in his eyes betrayed something heavier. Emma looked up sharply, startled, and then felt her cheeks warm. "Lucas," she whispered, adjusting Noah in his stroller. I didn't see you." He offered a small, wry smile. "It seems neither of us can avoid the world's little collisions." They moved to a quieter aisle, the ambient hum of the store fading into a cocoon of tentative intimacy. Lucas's gaze softened, and for the first time, he allowed himself to see Emma not as an employee, not as a figure of irritation or circumstance, but as a woman navigating impossible odds with courage and grace. "I've been thinking about you," he admitted, the words low and unpolished, as though daring them to exist in the open. "About how much you've carried alone, and how little anyone noticed." Emma's fingers tightened on the stroller handle. "It's not something people usually notice," she said quietly. Her voice, fragile but steady, carried years of quiet struggle and unspoken pain. I just do what I have to." Lucas took a careful step closer, yet still maintained a respectful distance. "I want to know," he said, voice almost a whisper. "I want to understand. If you'll let me, not as your boss, not as someone passing judgment, just as me." Emma hesitated, the weight of her past pressing down. She had learned early that trust was a currency easily spent and rarely returned. And yet there was something in Lucas's gaze, something that hinted at sincerity, at patience, at an understanding that transcended titles and roles. I've had to make choices no one sees," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "Choices for Noah, for survival, sacrifices that are invisible until they're gone." Lucas listened, silent, absorbing each word. He could feel the gravity of her story in the small tremor of her hands, in the resilience that shone through despite exhaustion and fear. For a man accustomed to power and precision, this was unfamiliar terrain. Yet he felt compelled to navigate it, to witness it, to somehow bridge the divide between their worlds. "You're remarkable," he said softly, the words carrying the weight of admiration, regret, and something more he could not yet name. I wish I had seen it sooner." Emma's heart stirred at the sincerity of his voice, at the rare glimpse of vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. She wanted to believe him, wanted to allow herself a sliver of hope, but caution and pride tethered her firmly to the ground. The moment lingered, heavy and charged, until the sound of a baby's small whimper reminded them both of reality. Emma smiled faintly, exhaustion and emotion mingling in her gaze. "I should finish shopping," she said, glancing at Noah. Lucas nodded, reluctant to let the encounter end, yet unwilling to overstep. "Of course," he said softly. I'll see you again." Emma gave a brief nod, one measured and careful, and pushed the stroller forward, each step echoing with the unspoken weight of possibility. The city lights shimmered in puddles along the sidewalk, reflecting a world both ordinary and extraordinary. A world in which fate had begun to intertwine their lives in subtle, unbreakable threads. As she walked, Emma felt a mixture of anticipation and fear. Lucas had opened a door she had long kept closed, offering understanding and attention she wasn't sure she deserved. Yet the pull between them, gentle and persistent, stirred something in her heart she hadn't felt in years, a fragile, tender longing that threatened to grow if left unchecked. Meanwhile, Lucas lingered beneath the glow of the street lamp, the rain cooling the warmth on his skin. He traced the contours of her image in his mind, replaying her words, her expressions, the quiet courage in her stance. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that connection was not built on grand gestures or authority. It was born in shared understanding, in vulnerability, in witnessing someone's strength and pain without judgment. That night, both of them returned to their separate worlds, yet neither could shake the presence of the other. Emma, exhausted yet quietly invigorated by the acknowledgement of her struggle, settled Noah into his crib with gentle care. Lucas, haunted and moved, poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out over the city skyline, contemplating the invisible threads that had begun to weave their lives together. And somewhere in the quiet, cinematic spaces between heartbeats, the story deepened. Secrets were unfolding, vulnerabilities were exposed, and the slow burn of something neither of them could yet name had begun to smolder. The path ahead promised heartbreak, longing, and sacrifice, but also, if they dared to trust it, love. The bracelet, sold and lost yet never truly gone, lingered as a silent witness to their growing connection, a symbol of sacrifice, resilience, and the delicate ties that bind hearts across circumstance and distance. And somewhere, beyond the rain, beyond the city streets, beyond the unspoken words, a story was quietly, insistently beginning to bloom. Days had begun to flow with a rhythm that felt almost like breathing, though each beat carried the weight of cautious anticipation. Emma found herself navigating her fragile world with Noah in tow, balancing errands, meals, and the relentless demands of survival. Yet amidst the ordinary, the unexpected threads of connection to Lucas began to weave themselves quietly, like sunlight spilling through storm clouds. It began with small moments. A message left at the charity shop: "I hope Noah is well. Thinking of you." No demands, no expectation, just the simplest acknowledgement of their shared, unspoken bond. Emma had read it several times, tracing the letters with her finger, feeling the warmth in her chest and the sharp edge of caution slicing through it. The world outside her apartment remained indifferent, the hum of traffic, the occasional siren, neighbors bustling past their doorways, but inside there was a private, delicate pulse of something growing, fragile yet insistent. Lucas, in his sleek apartment far above the city, replayed the brief encounters over and over. The way Emma's brow furrowed in concentration, the gentle way she handled Noah, the quiet courage in her posture. He had seen resilience before, yes, but never paired with such tenderness. And then the encounters became deliberate. A shared coffee in the park, where the world seemed to pause for them, the drizzle painting soft silver over everything. Emma's laughter, hesitant at first, began to flow more freely as Lucas spoke of lighter things: books, city streets, fleeting observations. He never pried, never pressed. He merely watched, listened, and allowed her to exist fully in the moment, without expectation. "You're not like anyone I've met," he said quietly one afternoon, his voice softened by rain and distance. "You carry so much and yet, you make it look effortless." Emma tilted her head, feeling the warmth rise to her cheeks. "Effortless," she repeated, a hint of amusement in her voice. "I think you mean I'm barely holding it together." He smiled, unshakable yet tender. "No, I see the effort, Emma. And yet it doesn't break you. That is rare." There was something in his gaze that unsettled her and intrigued her all at once. She was accustomed to hiding fatigue, to guarding every emotional tremor. Yet here, in these small encounters, Lucas had discovered the invisible scaffolding of her life and had acknowledged it without judgment. Emma found herself anticipating these moments. The shared glances in the cafe window, the brief conversations under awnings as the rain drizzled softly, the subtle gestures that communicated more than words ever could. She recognized a growing trust, delicate and deliberate, and it frightened her. Trust was a currency she had spent too freely in the past, only to find it lost or betrayed. Lucas, too, felt the shift. His meticulously ordered life had left little room for unpredictability, yet Emma's presence created a quiet upheaval that he both resisted and craved. He began leaving notes at the charity shop, small tokens of attention: a favorite book, a sketch of a city street, a simple question about Noah's day. Nothing intrusive, nothing demanding, just enough to remind Emma that she was seen, that her struggles and sacrifices mattered. One afternoon, the rain fell heavier than usual, and Lucas found Emma sitting on a low bench, Noah asleep in her arms. She had been quietly humming, a melody soft and tentative, as if to herself. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "You hum beautifully," he said softly, his voice almost swallowed by the drizzle. Emma looked up, startled, and then smiled faintly. "It's nothing," she said, adjusting Noah in his blanket. "Just something to keep him calm." He took a seat a respectful distance away, letting the sound of rain and her gentle hum fill the space between them. "It's something," he insisted. "You don't get to downplay it." For the first time, Emma allowed herself to relax in his presence, the constant vigilance of survival loosening just enough for warmth to seep in. They spoke in soft tones, the city fading around them, replaced by a fragile cocoon of shared understanding. Words carried weight, yes, but more powerful were the pauses, the shared glances, the quiet acknowledgement that they existed for each other in these moments. Lucas watched her carefully, noticing how she cradled Noah, the curve of her lips when she smiled, the way her eyes softened when she spoke of her son. He had built walls around himself for decades, yet here, in the rain-soaked park, those walls felt unnecessary, even impossible. Emma, in turn, found herself studying him. Beneath the polished exterior, beneath the sharp intellect and controlled demeanor, there was a man capable of quiet empathy, of patience, of understanding without judgment. It unsettled her, yes, but it also kindled something she had not felt in years: the tentative stirrings of trust, of curiosity, of longing. Even the bracelet, though gone from her wrist, lingered as a quiet emblem between them. It had been a sacrifice, yes, but also a testament to endurance and love. Lucas had glimpsed that sacrifice, and in his acknowledgement, a thread began to tie them together, unseen but persistent. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened in small, almost imperceptible ways. Shared coffee, whispered exchanges of concern, the occasional lingering glance. none rushed, none forced. It was slow, deliberate, and cinematic in its intimacy, like a film unfolding frame by frame, each moment layered with emotion and meaning. Yet beneath the growing connection, both carried unspoken fears. Emma's heart remained tethered to caution, to survival, to the need to protect Noah above all else. Lucas wrestled with pride, with the fear of overstepping, with the unfamiliar vulnerability of wanting something he had long denied himself. And so, their bond continued to build, fragile yet resilient. A slow burn that neither could fully comprehend, but both felt in the quiet chambers of the heart. As the rain fell softly outside her apartment window that night, Emma cradled Noah and let herself imagine possibilities she had long suppressed. Perhaps trust could exist alongside caution. Perhaps love could emerge even in lives defined by sacrifice. Perhaps, in the quiet spaces between moments, they could find a connection strong enough to endure hardship and heartbreak alike. High above the city, Lucas stared out over the skyline, rain streaking the glass, and traced her image in his mind once more. Each memory, each encounter, each small revelation of her resilience wove a tapestry he could not resist, and he understood, with an undeniable certainty, that the slow, deliberate connection they were building was the foundation of something rare, something worth protecting, and something worth risking everything for. In the hush of the night, in the spaces between raindrops and breaths, the story of Emma and Lucas continued to bloom, a cinematic narrative of love, longing, sacrifice, and quiet revelation. Each heartbeat, each glance, each tender gesture carried them forward, step by delicate step, toward a future neither dared yet to name, but both felt in the tremor of a slowly igniting hope. And somewhere, beyond the city lights, beyond the rhythm of rain and the quiet of sleeping streets, a story began to unfold, one that would test hearts, demand courage, and ultimately reveal the delicate, enduring power of love. Rain streaked the city streets again, a relentless rhythm that mirrored the tension in Emma's chest. Life had begun to settle into its fragile cadence, the errands, the laughter of fleeting moments with Lucas, the quiet intimacy of shared understanding. And yet, beneath the surface, something unsettled was taking root, a shadow that neither of them had anticipated. It began with a rumor, a casual comment from a coworker, a passing mention that Lucas had been seen in the company of another woman. Emma froze mid-step. The stroller halted on the slick pavement as if the city itself had conspired to stop her. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear, disbelief, and that familiar ache she had learned to carry alone. She wanted to dismiss it, to trust the small but steady bond they had been nurturing. But the words echoed relentlessly, bouncing in her mind like a cruel refrain. He's with someone else. Emma tried to focus on Noah, on dinner, on bills, on anything that would tether her to reality. But every time her thoughts drifted, she saw Lucas, smiling, attentive, seemingly perfect, and then the whisper of betrayal returned, jagged and sharp. She wanted to confront him, to demand truth, but fear and pride held her back. Lucas, meanwhile, was unaware of the storm brewing in Emma's mind. He had been preoccupied with his own world of deals, responsibilities, and subtle guilt over his growing feelings for her. He had not anticipated that a single, careless rumor could begin to fracture the trust they had painstakingly built. It happened one afternoon when Emma, exhausted and drained, stopped by the small cafe they had come to frequent. She had expected quiet conversation, the comforting murmur of shared understanding. Instead, she saw him laughing with another woman, close enough that the curve of their shoulders suggested intimacy. She was not prepared to witness. Her heart froze. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Every step she had taken toward trust, every fragile moment of connection, now felt like it had been built on sand. Without thinking, she turned and left, her mind a whirlwind of pain, questions, and betrayal. Noah fussed in the stroller, but she barely registered it, her focus consumed entirely by the vision she had just seen. She told herself it was real, that the truth didn't matter. Her trust, delicate and newly formed, had been shattered. Lucas, returning later to the cafe, found the seat they had reserved empty. Confusion and concern gnawed at him. He did not understand why she had vanished so abruptly. And then the text arrived. Her voice, though measured, carried the sting of wounded pride. "I saw you." With her, Lucas's heart sank. He had been careful, cautious, never wanting to cross boundaries, yet here was the consequence of a misunderstanding. He knew immediately that he had to act, to explain, to mend the rift that had suddenly yawned between them. Emma, meanwhile, retreated to the apartment, her mind spinning. She replayed the scene over and over, magnifying every gesture, every glance, every laugh. Her chest ached with a cocktail of hurt and longing. She wanted to trust him, but her past, broken promises, vanished affections, and the relentless need to protect Noah kept her tethered to caution. The next morning, Lucas arrived at her apartment, rain dripping from his coat, eyes dark with a mixture of apology and determination. "Emma," he said softly, voice steady despite the storm outside, "I need to explain, please." Emma's eyes met his, cold and wary. Yet beneath the surface lingered a glimmer of the trust she had been willing to give. I don't know if I can listen," she whispered, fingers gripping the stroller handle tightly. I saw you. I don't know what's real anymore." Lucas knelt slightly, placing a careful hand near the stroller without touching, a gesture of respect and connection. "It wasn't what you think," he said gently. "The woman, she's a colleague. A friend. Nothing more. I swear it." Emma's chest heaved, caught between relief and residual pain. Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why let me think I wasn't enough?" Lucas's gaze softened, regret etching the lines of his face. "I wanted to tell you. I tried to, but I didn't know how. I was afraid of overwhelming you, of pushing you away. I've never felt this way about anyone. Not like this." The rain outside intensified, drumming against the windows like the pulse of the city itself, echoing the tumult within their hearts. Emma felt her walls waver, the carefully constructed boundaries she had built around trust beginning to crack. And yet fear remained, a stubborn shadow whispering that love, once broken, was always fragile. "I want to believe you," she said finally, voice soft, almost fragile. "But it hurts too much to just take it on faith." Lucas nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, "and I'll do whatever it takes to prove it to you. I don't want to lose you, Emma. Not like this. Not ever." Her eyes softened slightly, the first tentative cracks of hope piercing the lingering pain. But she could not yet allow herself to fully trust. Not after the fear, not after the hurt, not with Noah depending on her to navigate the world safely and carefully. Over the following days, Lucas's patience became their unspoken bridge. He did not demand forgiveness or insist on explanations. He left notes, sent messages, and found subtle ways to demonstrate care. A package of Noah's favorite snacks, a small umbrella left outside her door, a sketch of a quiet street corner she had mentioned loving. Each gesture, deliberate and understated, began to rebuild the fragile connection, showing that his intentions were sincere. Emma, meanwhile, found herself slowly letting the walls around her heart soften. The ache of misunderstanding remained, but it no longer consumed every thought. She began to recognize the deliberate care in his actions, the steady, unspoken commitment that had nothing to do with words and everything to do with presence. And so, amidst the rain, amidst the uncertainty and lingering fear, the slow burn continued. Their connection, tested by misunderstanding, shadowed by perceived betrayal, found its resilience not in grand declarations, but in the quiet, patient gestures of two hearts learning to navigate love, trust, and vulnerability. By the time the week drew to a close, Emma sat on her apartment balcony, watching rain streak across the glass, Noah asleep beside her, and felt a tentative sense of peace. Lucas had not yet fully earned her trust, not yet fully unraveled the knots of fear and caution, but he had begun the work, and that, she realized quietly, was enough for now. Somewhere across the city, Lucas sat in his apartment, rain dripping from the terrace, sketching the image of her in his mind, aware that love was never simple, never immediate. But he understood, with clarity and conviction, that it was worth every moment of effort, every delicate step forward. And in the cinematic hush of a rain-soaked city, their story continued. A slow burn of longing, heartbreak, and the fragile promise of connection that neither could yet fully name, but both were learning to feel, step by careful step, heart by tentative heart. The city had begun to slow under the early evening sky, the glow of streetlights casting long shadows along slick pavements. Emma stood by the window of her apartment, staring at the fading light as it bled through the clouds, painting the streets gold and gray. Noah slept quietly in his crib, the gentle rise and fall of his chest a rhythm she held on to, a reminder that amidst uncertainty, life persisted. The week had been a quiet storm of emotions. Lucas's gestures, subtle yet deliberate, had begun to rebuild the fragile trust fractured by misunderstanding. Notes left at the charity shop, brief messages asking after Noah, a carefully chosen book. It was small, tender, persistent. And yet, beneath the cautious optimism, a shadow lingered. Emma felt it in the ache of her wrist where the bracelet had once been, in the lingering worry for her son, in the fear that trusting again might open doors she couldn't close. As dusk fell, the streets outside shimmered under the drizzle of a returning rain. Emma pulled her shawl tighter, leaning against the windowpane, feeling the chill of uncertainty seep into her bones. The light was fading, and with it came the weight of reflection choices made, sacrifices endured, and the quiet longing she could no longer ignore. Lucas appeared that evening as if drawn by instinct. A soft knock on the door, deliberate, careful. He carried nothing, no gift, no note, just his presence, tangible and steady. Emma hesitated, her heart tightening, but the sound of Noah's soft coo broke the spell of hesitation. She opened the door, and for a moment neither spoke. They simply regarded each other, a quiet understanding bridging the gap left by days of cautious communication. "Emma," he said softly, voice almost swallowed by the rain's distant patter. "I know it's not easy trusting, opening your heart. I want to be here if you'll let me." Emma's hands lingered on the doorframe, uncertain, torn between instinct and desire. "It's complicated," she whispered. "Everything with Noah, with life, it's never simple." Lucas nodded, understanding in the depth of his gaze. "I know. And I don't expect simplicity. I just want you to know I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." The sincerity in his tone, in the subtle steadiness of his presence, stirred something in her chest, a tentative bloom of hope she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to resist, to protect herself and her son, yet the pull of connection, the slow, burning bond they had cultivated, was impossible to deny. They stepped onto the balcony together, rain misting the air around them, the fading light casting their shadows long and intertwined. Noah slept peacefully inside, unaware of the delicate, emotional dance unfolding outside the apartment. The city below was a blur of shimmering streets, neon reflections, and the gentle hum of life continuing despite uncertainty. "I keep thinking about that morning," Lucas admitted quietly, voice low, intimate. "The coffee, the chaos, the way I lost my temper. I've replayed it endlessly, and he faltered, searching for the right words. "I wish I had seen you, not as a mistake, but as someone remarkable. Someone I couldn't ignore." Emma swallowed, heart aching with a mixture of longing and vulnerability. "You didn't see me," she whispered, voice barely audible. "You only saw the spill, the inconvenience, everything else invisible." Lucas reached for her hand, careful, deliberate. His fingers brushed hers, a tentative touch that sent a ripple through her chest. "I see you now," he said softly. "Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every small choice you've made for him, I see it. And I admire you, Emma. More than I can say." Her breath caught. Words, finally spoken, carried the weight of recognition, acknowledgement, and desire. She wanted to step closer, to let the warmth of his hand anchor her, to allow herself the comfort of trust. But fear lingered, stubborn and insistent. I want to believe you," she said finally, voice trembling, "but trusting it's hard. After everything, after so many moments where life demanded too much, I don't know if I can fully open my heart again." Lucas's gaze softened, patient and unwavering. "Then we'll take it slow," he said. "No pressure, no expectation. Just presence, just being here together step by step." The rain intensified, misting their faces, soft and insistent. Emma felt the tension in her chest ease, replaced by a fragile, flickering warmth. They stood together, hand in hand, as the fading light merged with the gentle illumination of streetlights, a cinematic tableau of longing, vulnerability, and the slow, deliberate bloom of trust. "I've never experienced something like this," Emma admitted, voice low, almost a confession to herself. "Connection with someone who doesn't demand perfection, who doesn't expect me to hide everything." Lucas nodded, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "It's rare," he admitted softly, "but it's real. And that's worth everything." They lingered in silence, the rain their only witness, the fading light casting the world in hues of gold and gray. Emma felt the walls around her heart, built from years of sacrifice and protection, begin to soften. She allowed herself a quiet, fragile hope, a hope that perhaps life could hold tenderness alongside struggle, connection alongside sacrifice. And in the quiet, cinematic rhythm of the rain-soaked evening, Lucas and Emma discovered a delicate equilibrium, a space where longing could exist without fear, where vulnerability could coexist with resilience, where love could begin to flourish even amidst the shadows of hardship. The bracelet, long gone from Emma's wrist but never gone from memory, lingered as a quiet symbol, a reminder of sacrifice, of endurance, and of the fragile threads of connection that tied them together. It was a whisper of the past, a testament to resilience, and a subtle promise of what could yet be. As the night deepened, Emma watched Noah sleep, heart softening with the recognition that even in the darkest moments, there was space for light, for trust, for love. Lucas remained on the balcony, a steady presence, a quiet guardian of the fragile bond they had begun to nurture. The fading light of day had given way to the quiet luminescence of the city night, and with it came the realization that connection, however tentative, was enough to kindle hope. Their story, cinematic and slow-burning, continued to unfold, not in grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but in the subtle, deliberate moments where hearts learn to trust, to hope, and to reach toward each other despite fear and uncertainty. And somewhere, beyond the rain-soaked streets and the fading glow of day, the slow burn of love deepened, a light gentle yet unyielding, fragile yet resilient, guiding them forward step by delicate step, heartbeat by trembling heartbeat. The following morning brought a brittle quiet, the kind that made the city feel both expansive and lonely. Emma sat at her small kitchen table, steam rising from a cup of coffee she didn't yet taste. Noah played quietly in the corner, building towers of blocks, his laughter soft but fleeting. It was ordinary, mundane, yet beneath the surface. Emma felt the tension of unresolved questions pressing against her chest, and then the letter arrived. It was unassuming, a plain envelope with Lucas's neat handwriting across the front. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. The paper inside carried more than ink. It carried the weight of vulnerability, confession, and a truth she had not expected. "Emma," it began, "I don't expect this letter to erase misunderstandings or to demand anything from you. I simply need you to know what I've carried, what I've felt, and what I hope to build with you. If you can forgive the past, I promise to never take the future for granted." Her heart pounded. Each word unfolded slowly, deliberately, like a gentle hand tracing the contours of her emotions. Lucas wrote of the mistakes he had made, the regret that had kept him awake at night, the silent longing he could not speak aloud when the world seemed to demand composure. He spoke of her resilience, her quiet courage, the way she had carried her life and her son with dignity and strength. And then, carefully, he confessed something Emma had not expected, that he had been searching for a way to bridge the distance between them, to earn her trust, and to show that his intentions were steadfast. Emma read and reread the words, each line a gentle echo against the walls she had built around her heart. The city outside continued its indifferent rhythm, cars passing, doors opening and closing, a distant siren. But inside her apartment, time seemed suspended, held captive by the delicate, fragile thread of connection Lucas had woven in ink and sentiment. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the letter to her chest, feeling a warmth she had not allowed herself to feel in years. Trust had been fractured, hope had been tentative, yet here, in the quiet intimacy of a written confession, she felt the possibility of something deeper, something worth the risk. Noah toddled over, tugging at her sleeve, breaking the spell with his small, insistent presence. Emma looked down at him and smiled, brushing his hair from his eyes. "Mummy's reading a story from a friend," she whispered, her voice trembling. Noah didn't understand, of course, but he sensed her joy, her quiet relief. She folded the letter carefully, placing it where she could see it. It was a lifeline, a tangible connection to Lucas's heart, and a bridge to the future she had not dared to imagine. Later that day, Emma stepped into the drizzle outside, Noah tucked safely under her coat, and walked to the park where they had first shared quiet moments of understanding. Lucas was there, standing beneath the awning, eyes scanning the rain-soaked streets as if he had been waiting for this precise moment. "Emma," he said softly, voice carrying through the mist, "I got your message." She held up a hand, shaking her head gently. "It's not a message," she said, voice low, "it's a letter. And it changed everything." Lucas's eyes softened, hope mingling with something deeper. Relief, admiration, longing. He stepped closer, cautious, careful not to overstep. "Can I read it?" he asked quietly. Emma hesitated, the weight of vulnerability pressing against her chest. And then, slowly, she handed it to him, watching as his eyes moved over the carefully chosen words, over the confessions, over the truth laid bare. When he finished, Lucas looked up, a softness in his gaze that made her breath catch. "Emma," he whispered, voice trembling slightly, I don't know what to say. You've given me more than words can capture. I will never take this for granted." She felt a tear slip down her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw. "I believe you," she admitted, voice barely audible. "But trust isn't easy. It's fragile. And I've been careful for a reason." Lucas nodded, reaching for her hand, brushing the rain from her sleeve with gentle care. "I understand," he said softly, "and I'll spend every day proving that I'm worthy of it. Worthy of you." The rain fell steadily, but the world felt quieter somehow, as if the letter had carved a private space around them. Emma felt her chest lighten, the heaviness of fear and doubt softened by the tangible proof of Lucas's care and intention. She allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, a future where trust could exist alongside longing, where vulnerability could coexist with resilience, where love could emerge despite the scars of the past. They lingered in the park, hand in hand, watching the rain streak the pavement, listening to the soft rhythm of droplets tapping leaves and rooftops. Words were unnecessary, presence was enough. Their connection, once tentative, now felt grounded in shared understanding and deliberate acknowledgement of each other's struggles. And somewhere in the quiet, cinematic pause between heartbeats, Emma allowed herself to hope. The letter had not solved everything, had not erased the past, but it had opened a door, a fragile, tentative door, to something new, something worth the risk. Lucas, feeling the delicate warmth of her hand in his, understood the gravity of this moment. It was not grand declarations or fleeting gestures that built love. It was presence, patience, acknowledgement, and the quiet promise to walk beside someone through uncertainty. As the day faded into evening, and the drizzle softened into a gentle mist, the city seemed to hold its breath. In that quiet space, Emma and Lucas stood together, hearts threading carefully toward each other, tentative yet insistent. The story they were writing, cinematic, slow, burning, tender, continued to unfold. Each word, each glance, each moment of trust a step deeper into the intricate tapestry of love. The bracelet, though long gone, lingered in memory, a symbol of sacrifice, endurance, and the delicate threads that now wove their hearts together. The letter had changed everything, not by rewriting the past, but by opening the possibility of a future built on honesty, vulnerability, and the slow bloom of love. Emma glanced at Lucas, at the softening expression in his eyes, at the careful steadiness of his posture, and realized that perhaps this time, trust could coexist with hope. Perhaps slowly hearts could mend. And perhaps in the cinematic rhythm of rain, city, and quiet moments, love could find a way to endure. The morning was sharp, brittle, and unyielding. Sunlight cut through the blinds in thin, impatient lines, falling across Emma's kitchen floor like fingers demanding attention. Noah was still asleep, his small chest rising and falling with untroubled rhythm. But Emma felt unrest coiling in her stomach, a storm she couldn't name, a collision of emotions threatening the fragile balance she and Lucas had begun to nurture. She hadn't expected him today, hadn't thought their tentative peace would be tested so soon. Yet when the knock came at the door, hard, insistent, her pulse quickened. She opened it to find Lucas, his expression taut with urgency, rain from the early drizzle still clinging to his coat. "Emma," he said, voice low, steady, yet carrying an edge she had rarely heard before. "We need to talk." Now, Emma's chest tightened. She stepped aside, letting him in, wary, protective, yet unwilling to shut the door on the truth he had so persistently sought. I didn't expect this," she murmured, gesturing toward the living room. "What's wrong?" Lucas sank into the couch, hands gripping the edges like he was holding himself together. "I heard something," he admitted. "Something I need to clarify before it becomes worse. I don't want misunderstandings between us. Not now." Emma stiffened, sensing the gravity in his words. "What is it?" she asked cautiously, preparing herself for yet another challenge to the fragile trust she had begun to offer. He exhaled sharply, frustration flickering across his features. "Someone's saying things about us, about me, about you. And I need you to hear it from me first. Before gossip, before assumptions, before anything else." Emma's heart sank, a cold knot tightening in her chest. She had faced rumors before, seen the world twist intentions and create false narratives, but Lucas's concern made it all more tangible, more urgent. "Go on," she said softly, almost reluctantly. Lucas leaned forward, voice dropping to a near whisper. "They're saying that I'm only interested because of your situation. That I'm exploiting you, or your son. That I don't care about you, Emma. That all of this it's a game to me." The words hit her like a sudden, chilling gust. She wanted to recoil, to deny it, to push the fear back down. But the shadow of doubt, however fleeting, had already planted its seed. She looked at him, searching his eyes for truth. "Is it true?" she asked, voice trembling despite herself. Lucas's gaze softened, dark with sincerity and something deeper, something raw. "No. Nothing about us is a game," he said quietly. "I care about you, truly, deeply. Not just for your story, not just for your struggles, for you. The real you, and for Noah. Every gesture, every word, every moment has been real." Emma's hands trembled slightly, gripping the edge of the table. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him. But years of survival had left her cautious, trained to anticipate betrayal. I want to believe you," she admitted, "but these whispers, they make it hard." Lucas's fingers brushed hers. Deliberate grounding, a touch both firm and gentle. "I know," he said softly. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove that none of it's true. I won't let anyone come between us. Not rumors, not assumptions, not fear." A long silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the distant hum of the city and the faint drizzle outside. The collision of words, the accusations, the doubts, the truths, hung in the air, pressing on both of them. Emma looked down, drawing a quiet breath. "I've been careful," she admitted. "Careful to protect him, to protect myself. I can't just open my heart without certainty. Not again." Lucas nodded slowly, understanding etched into every line of his face. "I don't expect certainty," he said. "I just need you to hear me. That's all I can offer right now. Presence, honesty, and patience." She lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes, searching for any hint of deception. There was none. Only the steady pull she had begun to recognize, the quiet insistence that he was here not to play games but to build, to protect, to nurture. "I want to trust you," she whispered finally. "I really do, but fear it's still here. And so is caution." Lucas leaned closer, voice gentle, almost reverent. "Then let's walk together step by step. No leaps, no sudden promises. Just one step at a time. Together." The collision of words, the harsh whispers of rumor, the weight of unspoken fears, the clarity of confession, settled into a fragile harmony. The storm outside mirrored the storm in their hearts, yet amidst the turbulence, a quiet understanding emerged. Trust was not immediate. Love was not immediate. But both were possible, if nurtured patiently, carefully, deliberately. Emma exhaled slowly, allowing a flicker of hope to settle in her chest. The collision had not broken them, it had clarified. Words, even harsh or misleading ones, had brought truth into sharp relief. Lucas had chosen honesty over convenience, presence over distance, and for that, she felt the beginnings of a fragile, tentative peace. They sat together on the couch, hands intertwined, listening to the rain patter against the windows. Noah stirred in his crib, sensing the quiet tension in the air, but then returned to sleep, untroubled. The city outside continued its indifferent rhythm, but inside a delicate, cinematic moment unfolded. Two hearts, tested by words, rumors, and fear, learning once again how to trust, how to connect, and how to lean into something fragile but real. And somewhere, in the soft illumination of evening and the quiet resonance of shared vulnerability, Emma and Lucas discovered the subtle truth. Collisions of words, no matter how sharp, could ultimately forge understanding, clarity, and the beginnings of enduring love. The bracelet's absence lingered in memory, a symbol of sacrifice, of resilience, of everything Emma had endured. And yet, in the collision of words and emotions, she began to see another symbol, a thread weaving between them, delicate but persistent, carrying the promise of hope, trust, and connection. As the evening deepened and rain softened into mist, they remained side by side, hearts steadying with the acknowledgement that love required courage, patience, and the willingness to face both internal and external storms. The collision had not destroyed them. It had shaped them, defined them, and prepared them for the challenges and beauty yet to come. And in the cinematic hush of that rain-soaked evening, Emma allowed herself to believe, just a little, that hearts, once fractured, could begin to beat together again. The city was drenched in silver by evening, rain tapping insistently against windows and rooftops. Emma stood on the balcony, Noah asleep inside, wrapped in the warmth of a soft blanket. She let the rain soak through her coat, cold and biting, as though it could wash away the ache pressing at her chest. Lucas had been patient, attentive, present, but even the strongest connection could falter under the weight of life's relentless complications. She had received the call that morning, a voice on the other end delivering news she hadn't anticipated. Noah's father, long absent and once presumed indifferent, had returned with unexpected claims. Custody, legal complications, questions about Emma's decisions as a mother. Fear and anger twisted together in her chest, a storm she could not quell. Lucas had insisted on accompanying her to the courthouse, to be a steady presence, to offer support in ways both subtle and firm. Yet even as he stood beside her, the distance between intention and consequence widened. Legalese arguments, misunderstandings, they became a cacophony in her ears, a world threatening to upend the fragile life she had built with Noah. Emma clenched her fists as the final words of the judge echoed in the chamber. Custody would be shared temporarily, visitation rights strictly enforced. She walked out of the courthouse, Lucas's hand resting lightly on her shoulder, but the victory felt hollow. The rain had begun in earnest, drenching the city in a relentless cadence that matched the storm in her heart. I can handle it," she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't expect him back. Not like this, not now." Lucas's eyes softened, holding her gaze with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "You're not alone," he said. "I'm here. Whatever comes next, I'm here." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to allow the warmth of his presence to mend the fractures forming in her heart. And yet, as they walked through the rain-soaked streets, the weight of fear, responsibility, and uncertainty pressed upon her, a relentless reminder that life did not yield easily to hope. They paused under the awning of a closed cafe, water streaming off the roof in silver rivulets. Lucas turned to her, eyes searching, voice soft but insistent. "Emma, talk to me. Let me in. Don't shut me out, not now." Emma's lips trembled. I can't," she admitted. I want to lean on you, but I have to protect him first. I can't risk anything." Lucas reached for her hand, warm despite the cold drizzle, his fingers brushing hers in a gesture both comforting and grounding. "I understand," he said, "but I'm not here to replace, to compete, or to take over. I'm here to be here, with you, with him, with whatever life throws at us." For a moment, the rain fell heavier, the city a blur of light and motion, and Emma allowed herself to lean into the touch, the presence, the unspoken promise of support. Yet even as she did, a shiver ran through her, not from the cold, but from the aching realization of what she could lose, what she could not yet trust fully. Later, at her apartment, she cradled Noah, rocking him gently as the rain continued its relentless rhythm outside. Lucas sat nearby, silent but vigilant, offering quiet presence in place of words. The apartment felt both sanctuary and cage, a fragile balance between comfort and looming uncertainty. "Emma," Lucas whispered finally, voice low, intimate, "I don't want to pressure you. I can't bear to see you like this. The fear, the doubt, it eats at you." She shook her head, tears slipping freely now, unheeded, warm against her cheeks. "I'm scared," she admitted, "for him, for us, for everything. I don't know if I can survive another heartbreak." Lucas moved closer, carefully, deliberately, until his hand rested on hers. "You won't have to survive it alone," he said. "I'll be here, always." The rain tapped relentlessly against the windows, each drop a small percussion of reality, of trials, of heartbreak. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of connection, yet aware of the fragility of the moment. Trust had been tested, misunderstandings had occurred, and the world outside threatened constantly to intrude upon the fragile peace they had begun to build. And yet, in that quiet, cinematic pause, there was tenderness, there was hope, there was the slow, deliberate recognition that hearts could endure. Even in heartbreak, even in fear, even in relentless rain. If someone chose to remain present, to witness pain without judgment, to offer support without expectation. As the night deepened, Emma watched Lucas watch her, Noah, and the world outside the apartment window. There was a quiet, unspoken agreement between them. Love required patience, endurance, and the courage to lean into vulnerability, even when fear threatened to overtake the heart. And somewhere, in the cinematic hush of rain and shadows, the slow burn continued. Hearts had been tested, trust had been strained, but the bond between them, delicate, tentative, and persistent, remained intact. It was a fragile thing, yes, but it was theirs. The bracelet, sold long ago to feed her child, lingered as memory, a symbol of sacrifice, of resilience, of love tested by circumstance. And in the heartbreak of rain, in the collision of fear and longing, Emma understood something deeper. Love, when truly patient and present, could survive even the darkest storms. Lucas whispered her name softly, and she let herself respond, a fragile warmth threading through her chest, a light flickering in the shadows. The rain continued its gentle percussion, the city a distant blur, and in that quiet cinematic moment, they discovered the delicate power of endurance, trust, and the slow, deliberate bloom of love amidst heartbreak. The city was quiet that evening, an unusual hush settling over streets usually bustling with life. Rain had given way to mist, a soft, ethereal glow clinging to lamplight and pavements alike. Emma sat in her apartment, Noah asleep in her arms, heart heavy with the weight of recent days. Lucas had been patient, steadfast, and kind. But now, life demanded more than presence, it demanded sacrifice. A letter had arrived that morning, not for Emma, but for Lucas, a summons of sorts, legal and irrevocable. The terms were clear: a family emergency, a matter that could not be ignored. Lucas faced a choice, one that would pull him away from Emma at a critical juncture, forcing him to balance duty and desire, love and responsibility. He arrived at her apartment later that evening, a quiet urgency shadowing his features. The warmth in his eyes remained, but there was something heavier now. A tension that spoke of decisions yet to be made, sacrifices yet to be offered. "Emma," he said, voice soft, "careful, I have to leave. There's something I need to handle. It can't wait." His words faltered, the weight of the unspoken pressing between them. Emma's hands gripped his coat, sensing the storm behind the restraint. "Leave?" she asked, disbelief sharpening her tone. "Now, after everything, after the past weeks." Lucas knelt slightly, taking her hands in his, grounding her, grounding himself. "I know it's sudden. I know it hurts. But it's something I can't ignore. I promise, Emma, I'll come back. I'll do everything I can to make this right. But some sacrifices, some responsibilities have to come first." The word sacrifice hung between them, heavy and resonant. Emma understood immediately, the weight of choices, the complexity of life's demands. She wanted to protest, to hold him close, to ask him to stay. But in her heart, she recognized the truth love sometimes required letting go, even if just for a time. I understand," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Even if it hurts, even if it feels like everything we've built is fragile. I trust you." Lucas's eyes softened, gratitude mingling with longing. "That means more than you know," he whispered. He leaned forward, pressing a gentle, lingering kiss to her forehead. A promise, a benediction, a tether across distance and duty. The following days were a delicate balance. Lucas handled his obligations with quiet resolve, communicating in brief messages, leaving small notes and reminders of his presence. Emma managed her world with equal determination. Noah, the apartment, the charity shop, and the fragile rhythm of trust they had nurtured. Each day stretched long, cinematic in its quiet, punctuated by longing, reflection, and the ache of separation. Then came the moment of reckoning, a complication that threatened to undo the fragile equilibrium. A misunderstanding arose, a misinterpreted conversation, a shadow of doubt that crept silently into Emma's heart. She felt the weight of fear pressing again, wondering if the distance had fractured the connection Lucas had fought so diligently to preserve. Lucas returned late one evening, exhaustion in his eyes but determination in his posture. He found Emma waiting, hesitant yet resolute, the soft glow of lamplight illuminating the contours of worry and longing on her face. "Emma," he said, voice low, almost a whisper, "I know this hasn't been easy. I know the distance. The sacrifices, they've tested everything. But he faltered, then steadied himself. "I'm here now. Fully. And I want to make this right." Emma's chest tightened. The words were simple, yet profound. Acknowledgement, presence, a deliberate commitment to redemption. Tears welled in her eyes, reflecting both relief and the lingering ache of everything they had endured. I want to believe you," she admitted, voice fragile. "But trust is delicate. And I have been cautious for a reason." Lucas reached for her, hands warm, steady, grounding. "Then let me earn it," he said quietly. "Let me show you every day that I'm worthy. That my presence, my choices, my sacrifices, they are for us. For you and Noah." The rain began to fall softly outside, gentle and forgiving, misting the city in silver. Emma felt the weight of fear and uncertainty ease slightly, replaced by the fragile bloom of hope. The collision of sacrifice and redemption was not dramatic or sudden. It was quiet, deliberate, earned through presence, patience, and the conscious decision to prioritize love, even when life demanded difficult choices. Lucas stayed through the evening, tending to Noah, sharing quiet conversation, listening as Emma spoke of her fears, her memories, her dreams. The apartment, once a sanctuary of caution, became a space of tentative renewal, a cinematic tableau of endurance and quiet healing. Emma paused, glancing at Lucas, at the warmth in his eyes, the sincerity in his posture. I think I can let myself hope, even if just a little." Lucas smiled softly, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. "Then let's hope together," he said, step by step, moment by moment, with honesty, patience, and the courage to face whatever comes. The night deepened, the rain softened into a gentle drizzle, and the city outside shimmered under the lamplight, cinematic and tender. Emma and Lucas sat side by side, hands entwined, hearts steadying, the delicate threads of sacrifice and redemption weaving a tapestry of trust, resilience, and love. The bracelet, sold long ago to feed her child, lingered in memory, a reminder of the cost of survival, the weight of sacrifice, and the endurance of love. And in that quiet cinematic moment, Emma recognized that Lucas's choices, his presence, his deliberate commitment, were themselves acts of redemption, a demonstration that love was more than words. It was action, patience, and the courage to endure. Noah stirred in his sleep, a small smile on his lips, and Emma allowed herself to imagine a future where love, though tested, could thrive. The cinematic rhythm of rain, light, and quiet conversation filled the room, a gentle accompaniment to the slow, deliberate rebuilding of hearts once tested, now finding resilience. And somewhere in the soft hush of night, amidst rain warmth, and the lingering scent of hope, Emma and Lucas discovered the subtle truth. Love could endure sacrifice, redemption could heal past wounds, and hearts, fragile, tested, and persistent, could find a way back to each other, step by deliberate step. The slow burn continued. Cinematic and tender, the threads of trust, longing, and connection weaving a story of love that could withstand storms, misunderstandings, and the weight of sacrifice. And as they sat together, the city outside shimmering like liquid silver, Emma allowed herself to believe, fully, tentatively, irreversibly, that redemption was possible and that love, carefully nurtured, could endure. The first rays of sunlight stretched across the city, pale and tentative, filtering through the haze of early morning mist. Emma stood at the edge of the park, wrapped in a soft shawl. Noah nestled against her chest, eyes half closed in drowsy contentment. The world seemed suspended between night and day, a quiet liminal space where endings and beginnings intertwined. She had spent the night thinking, replaying every moment of recent weeks, the misunderstandings, the heartbreak, the sacrifices, and the subtle acts of redemption. Lucas had returned from his family obligations, and now, in the gentle glow of dawn, the possibility of reconciliation and renewal hovered in the air, fragile but palpable. Noah stirred slightly, reaching for her face with a small, chubby hand. Emma smiled softly, her heart warming at the simplicity of his trust, his unspoken innocence. It was for him, for the life she had chosen, that she allowed herself to hope. And then she saw him. Lucas emerged from the mist, walking slowly along the path, hands in his pockets, head slightly bowed, yet the familiar warmth radiating from his posture. Time seemed to slow, the city around them fading into a blur of pale gold light and the soft rhythm of early birdsong. "Emma," he whispered, voice low, reverent, carrying both relief and longing. Emma's heart caught. She felt the years of fear, the weeks of hesitation, the storms of doubt, all of it condensed into a single, cinematic moment. She stepped forward, careful yet unafraid, allowing herself to be fully seen, fully present. "Lucas," she said softly, voice trembling, yet steady in its resolve. You're here." He closed the distance, each step deliberate, as if the world itself had slowed to accommodate their reunion. When he reached her, he took her hands gently, his thumbs brushing across her knuckles in quiet reassurance. "I promised I'd come back," he said, "and I always keep my promises." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, blurring the soft gold light around them. She wanted to run into his arms, to allow herself the vulnerability she had fought to protect. And yet, she paused, savoring the cinematic tension, the slow burn of trust and desire that had brought them here. Noah stirred again, small giggles escaping as Lucas crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "Morning, little man," Lucas whispered, voice full of warmth. Noah's eyes lit up at the familiar presence, reaching instinctively for the man who had become a steady part of their lives, even across distance and sacrifice. Emma watched them, heart swelling with gratitude and relief. The moments of separation, the tests of patience, the heartbreak, they all culminated here in the gentle, cinematic clarity of dawn. Emma began, voice catching. "I was afraid that distance, everything would change things. That trust, that love wouldn't survive." Lucas lifted her chin gently, their eyes meeting with a depth that transcended words. "I understand fear," he said softly, "but love survives because we choose it every day, because we fight for it, endure for it, and nurture it, even when the world is cruel, even when hearts are fragile." The mist swirled around them, soft and ethereal, as if the city itself held its breath. Emma allowed herself to breathe, to step closer, to lean into the warmth of his presence. The slow burn they had cultivated, tested, fractured, then repaired, felt tangible, real, undeniable. Lucas lowered his forehead to hers, a quiet intimacy, cinematic in its simplicity and profundity. "I've missed you," he whispered. "Every moment apart felt incomplete, but now, here, with you it feels like the world makes sense again." Emma's eyes glistened with tears, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to smile fully, unguarded. "I've missed you too," she admitted, voice soft, vulnerable, yet steady in its truth. I was scared, but being here now, it feels right." They stood together in the pale morning light, hands intertwined, hearts synchronized in a rhythm that had been tested and strengthened by trials, distance, and quiet endurance. The city awoke around them, traffic hums and distant conversations rising. Yet they remained in a cinematic bubble of calm, a moment suspended between what had been and what could be. Noah clapped his hands, delighted by their reunion, and Lucas scooped him into his arms effortlessly, spinning him gently, laughter echoing in the soft dawn. Emma watched, a delicate warmth spreading through her chest. Life was still complicated, still filled with challenges, but the threads of trust, love, and resilience were stronger than ever. "I promise," Lucas said quietly, brushing rain-damp hair from her face. "I'll always be here. No matter what storms come, no matter what challenges, I'll stand by you. By both of you, always." Emma leaned into him, feeling the slow, steady warmth of connection. "And I'll try," she whispered, "to trust, to let go, to allow love to grow even when it's scary." The sun rose higher, brushing the mist with soft gold. Shadows and light intertwined across the park, the cinematic glow illuminating two hearts that had been tested by fear, betrayal, misunderstanding, and distance. Yet here they were, together, resilient, tender, and deliberate in their slow, burn love. The bracelet lingered in memory, a symbol of sacrifice, of endurance, and the lengths a mother would go for her child. Now, it also became a symbol of reunion, of the quiet courage to trust again, and the cinematic beauty of hearts finding each other after storms. As they walked through the misty park, Noah nestled between them, laughter mingling with the soft morning air. Emma and Lucas felt the slow burn of their love deepen. Every step forward, every heartbeat shared, was a testament to patience, resilience, and the enduring power of connection. And somewhere in the quiet shimmer of dawn, amidst mist, golden light, and the subtle rhythm of a waking city, Emma and Lucas discovered a profound truth: hearts, once fractured, could reunite, trust, once tested, could flourish, and love, tender, deliberate, and cinematic, could endure. They paused at the edge of a small fountain, watching the water glisten in the morning light, hands entwined, hearts synchronized, and Emma whispered softly, "We made it, despite everything, we made it." Lucas pressed a gentle kiss to her temple, a quiet benediction. "Yes," he said, voice low and full of emotion. And this is only the beginning. The city stirred around them, the mist lifting, revealing streets washed clean by rain. Life continued, unpredictable and fragile. Yet within that cinematic morning, Emma and Lucas found clarity, resilience, and the slow, deliberate promise of a love renewed. The city outside glimmered under the softened glow of streetlights, wet pavements reflecting light like liquid gold. Emma and Lucas stood at the window, Noah between them, wrapped in the cocoon of safety they had created together. The storm had passed, but the memory of every trial, the misunderstandings, the heartbreak, the moments of doubt, still lingered, like shadows waiting to be acknowledged. Lucas brushed a damp strand of hair from Emma's face, eyes gentle yet intense. "Time doesn't undo what's been lost," he said softly, "but it can give us the chance to build again stronger, to heal carefully, deliberately. And that's what I want with you. With both of you." Emma let herself absorb the words, feeling the weight of months of struggle dissolve slowly. She had feared that love could not endure, that every misstep, every sacrifice, might fracture their fragile bond permanently. But now, standing here in the cinematic hush of restored peace, she recognized the quiet power of resilience, of patient trust, and of deliberate choice. Noah yawned, small and innocent, his tiny hand reaching for Lucas. Lucas lifted him effortlessly, spinning him gently, eliciting a soft giggle that filled the apartment with warmth and life. Emma smiled, a full, unguarded smile, letting herself imagine a future where laughter, trust, and love were constants rather than fragile hopes. "I promise," Lucas said quietly, holding both of them close. "I will protect this. I will protect you. Every choice I make, every step I take, will be for us. I've learned sacrifice, patience, and presence. They are what love truly demands." Emma leaned against him, chest rising and falling in quiet rhythm, heart threading carefully with his. "And I've learned," she said softly, voice trembling with emotion, "that letting someone in, letting love in, is the greatest act of courage, the greatest gift. And I want to give it to you." The apartment, bathed in rain, misted lamplight, became cinematic in its quiet beauty, the soft hum of the city outside, the gentle rhythm of breath and heartbeat, the lingering echo of trials endured and love preserved. Every glance, every touch, every word was deliberate, carrying the weight of redemption, trust, and the slow, persistent burn of passion finally allowed to flourish. Lucas kissed her forehead, lingering, tender, a benediction over every scar, every worry, every fear. "You've given me more than I can ever repay," he whispered. "But I'll spend my life showing you, proving that love can endure. That it can be patient, resilient, and tender." Emma's eyes glistened with tears, not of sorrow, but of release. "We've endured so much," she murmured. "And yet here we are, whole, together. And I think it's more beautiful than I ever imagined." Noah yawned again, snuggling against them, and Emma wrapped her arms around him and Lucas, the three of them a delicate, cinematic tableau of family love and resilience. The bracelet, once sold in sacrifice, lingered in memory, not as a token of pain, but as a reminder of endurance, of choices made for love, and of the strength required to nurture life, hope, and trust. Lucas pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. "Time has been restored," he said softly, voice low and deliberate. "Not by erasing the past, but by letting us step into the present fully, intentionally, together. And I promise we will honor that, every day." Emma rested her head against his shoulder, the city outside shimmering in silver and gold reflections. "Then let's," she whispered, voice almost lost in the quiet, "cherish every heartbeat, every moment, every second we have. Because love, true love, deserves that much." The night deepened, rain softened into a gentle mist, and the city's hum became a lullaby. In that cinematic stillness, Emma, Lucas, and Noah embraced a truth forged in trials that love, nurtured patiently, tested deliberately, and offered generously, could endure storms, repair fractures, and bloom even after the darkest nights. They lingered in the quiet, cinematic embrace, hands entwined, hearts synchronized, the slow burn of trust, hope, and devotion threading through every breath. The world outside continued its rhythm, indifferent yet beautiful, as the three of them discovered a delicate balance between resilience, redemption, and love restored. Emma glanced at Lucas, her eyes reflecting both vulnerability and certainty. "We've survived," she whispered. "We've sacrificed, we've endured, and now, it feels like time itself has given us a second chance." Lucas's lips curved into a gentle smile, the kind that spoke of quiet joy, deep commitment, and unwavering love. "Then let's not waste it," he murmured. "Let's live fully, love deeply, and honor every heartbeat we share. Together." And somewhere in the cinematic hush of rain, mist, and soft lamplight, hearts once fractured, once cautious, now beat deliberately, purposefully, and in harmony. Love had endured. Time had been restored, and trust, once tentative, now glimmered in quiet, irreplaceable radiance. Emma held Lucas's hand tightly, feeling the warmth, the rhythm, the unwavering promise of presence. Noah nestled between them, laughter and soft breaths punctuating the stillness. The city, cinematic and silvered by the rain, bore witness to a love that had been tested, refined, and ultimately restored. As dawn broke fully, spilling golden light over the rooftops and streets, Emma whispered softly, "We made it. Time, love, everything restored." Lucas kissed her temple one last time, tenderly, as if sealing a promise made not just to her, but to the life they would build together. "Yes," he said. And somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats, love begins again. The rain faded, the mist lifted, and the city awoke to the cinematic tableau of hearts mended, love preserved, and time, finally, restored. The morning air was soft, golden, and filled with quiet promise. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Emma's apartment, bathing the room in a warm, ethereal glow. Noah sat on the rug, giggling as Lucas gently spun him around, their laughter mingling with the light, creating a delicate symphony of life restored. Emma watched them from the kitchen doorway, hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, heart swelling with an emotion she had thought too fragile to hold again. The weeks of fear, sacrifice, and heartbreak had passed, the trials, misunderstandings, and distance that had once tested their love now felt like echoes of a storm long weathered. Lucas looked up, catching her gaze, a slow smile spreading across his face. It was not just a smile of contentment, but of quiet triumph. The recognition that love, carefully nurtured, endured beyond every trial. "Morning," he said softly, voice low, intimate, carrying warmth and devotion. Emma smiled back, eyes glistening with tears unbidden, a mixture of gratitude, relief, and enduring love. "Morning," she whispered, stepping closer. "No is happy. We're happy." Lucas crossed the room in slow, deliberate steps, taking her hand in his. "We are," he said, voice steady, sure. "And this is only the beginning." The apartment, once heavy with tension and uncertainty, now felt cinematic in its peace, the soft hum of the city beyond the windows, the gentle rhythm of laughter and breath, the quiet intimacy of two hearts that had endured storms and emerged tenderly, fully, and irrevocably connected. Noah toddled toward them, tiny hands reaching instinctively for both Emma and Lucas. Lucas lifted him effortlessly, spinning him gently in a circle, Noah's laughter ringing like a bell in the quiet morning. Emma felt warmth thread through her chest, a delicate, steady pulse echoing the slow, deliberate rhythm of life, love, and connection finally restored. She stepped closer to Lucas, letting herself be fully present, fully seen. She began, voice trembling, soft, deliberate. I didn't know if we could, if love, if trust could survive everything. But now I believe. I believe in us. Lucas pressed a gentle kiss to her temple, lingering, reverent, cinematic in its intimacy. Love, he whispered, voice soft, deliberate, is not about perfection. It's about presence, patience, and the courage to stay even when life tests us. And you've shown me every day what it means to endure, to hope, to trust. Emma's eyes filled with tears, bright and warm, a release of months of fear, worry, and longing. And I've learned, she whispered, that letting someone in, letting love in, is the bravest thing we can do. It's worth every tear, every heartbeat, every moment. Lucas nodded, pulling her gently into his embrace. Then let's be brave together, he said. Every day, every second, with honesty, laughter, and tenderness. With Noah, with life, with every heartbeat we share. The morning light shifted, spilling through the windows in streams of gold and silver, illuminating the room like a cinematic tableau of renewal. Outside, the city awoke slowly, birds stirred, distant traffic hummed, leaves glistened with dew. Inside, Emma, Lucas, and Noah existed in a delicate bubble of peace, love, and quiet joy, the slow burn of connection glowing steady and bright. Emma rested her head against Lucas's chest, feeling the deliberate, synchronized rhythm of his heartbeat. It was grounding, cinematic, and profound, the heartbeat of a love that had endured storms, misunderstanding, sacrifice, and distance. It was steady, unwavering, and entirely theirs. Noah crawled into her lap, small hands reaching for both of them, laughter soft and free. Emma smiled, brushing his hair gently, feeling the full scope of life, love, and resilience in that small, intimate gesture. The bracelet, sold long ago in sacrifice, lingered as a memory, not of despair, but of endurance, maternal devotion, and the power of love that can stretch beyond hardship to redemption. Lucas knelt beside them, hands hovering protectively over both mother and child. We've come so far, he said softly. And yet, I feel like we're just beginning. Every day, we'll choose each other again. Every day, we'll choose hope, laughter, and love. Emma's lips curved into a soft smile, eyes shimmering with cinematic clarity. And I'll choose you, she whispered. Every day, every moment, always. The city outside was quiet, cinematic, its muted rhythm framing the delicate tapestry of life inside three hearts synchronized, tested, and now thriving. The slow burn of trust, intimacy, and love glimmered in every glance, every touch, every shared breath. Lucas pressed a soft kiss to Noah's hair, then to Emma's temple. And somewhere, he whispered, voice low and deliberate, cinematic in its tenderness. In the quiet between heartbeats, love begins again. Emma leaned into him fully, letting the warmth, safety, and intimacy of the moment surround her. The past, the heartbreak, the misunderstandings, the sacrifices, was acknowledged, honored, and set aside. The present shimmered with cinematic clarity, a space where trust, patience, and enduring love thrived. Noah giggled again, reaching for Lucas, tugging him into another playful spin. Emma laughed softly, a sound unguarded, luminous, a release of fear, doubt, and every shadow that had lingered for months. In this morning, cinematic and tender, they were whole. Time, once fractured by distance, doubt, and sacrifice, had been restored. Hearts, once cautious and fragile, now beat in deliberate synchrony. Love, patient, enduring, and cinematic in its intensity, had returned, not as a fragile hope, but as a living, breathing, irreversibly real presence. Emma pressed her lips to Lucas's cheek, soft, deliberate, a kiss carrying gratitude, relief, and the quiet triumph of love preserved. We've survived, she whispered. We've endured, and now it's our time, our life, our love. Lucas held her gaze, eyes bright with tenderness, intensity, and unwavering devotion. Yes, he said, voice soft, deliberate. And together, we'll honor it, cherish it, and nurture it, always. The morning continued its slow, cinematic dance. Light shifting, shadows retreating, the soft hum of the city and the delicate rhythm of laughter and breath filling the apartment. Emma, Lucas, and Noah existed in a world suspended in perfect harmony, tender, cinematic, and deeply real. And somewhere in the golden hush of morning, amidst laughter, warmth, and the soft rhythm of restored hearts, they discovered a profound truth that love, once fractured, can endure, trust, once tested, can flourish, and hearts, deliberate, patient, and brave, can beat together again. Emma rested her head against Lucas's chest, Noah between them, and whispered softly, and somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, love begins again. The city shimmered beyond the windows, cinematic and eternal, a witness to the quiet, deliberate, enduring power of hearts reunited, trust rebuilt, and love reborn.